Yo, music's a bit early. Doesn't matter. How's it going? Um, Recently I started listening to the Podquisition after the beautiful meltdown that happened with Digital Dimension. Digital Homicide. I take that back. Digital Homicide. Anyhow, if you know Jimquisition, you know what happened with Digital Homicide. So after listening to that interview, I started, just checking out what was going on and in general, what's the podcast all about? I had some spare time. I think it's around podcast 30, which kind of led me to this topic. So that specific podcast, there was a small conversation about Deus Ex 4 and the whole mechanical apartheid. And one of their members, I think it's Laura, yeah, Laura K, mentioned something that kind of just rung a bell in my head. Now, I had no idea who this person was beforehand. I've never actually known this person's work, known this person's views, blah, blah, blah. But would obviously kind of, Red Alert was the not Radical SJW, but still quite SJW type of mentality. Yet, there was an interesting dialogue. Okay, so the whole mechanical apartheid thing is a subject in the next Deus Ex. It's a story. Of course, it's a science fiction story. It's fictional. It never happened. But just the mention of the word apartheid apparently triggered a lot of people online. But not really Laura. Yet she did point out that she disliked the use of the term in the game. And then further on went with, well, apartheid is a very racial type of topic. It has happened in Africa and yada yada yada. I say yada 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 mostly because it's what followed next wasn't relevant to the game. It's again this thing where I can't stand, I don't want you to use this word because it's something that's relating to another race. Yet, she did further on go with a point because, Jim and the the other guys, sorry man, Gavin. Jim and Gavin kind of interjected and said, well, it's science fiction. So what's the big deal? And, pushed it was a nice little interaction where, okay, so why are you angry at that? Because it's using a word that's related to something else in science fiction. And Laura came up with the point, and that's what kind of raised my red flag. The point that if they were going to use a word that is racially sensitive in a sense, referring to an event, then why not base the game entirely on that specific event? And she didn't say that to her it was a problem in science fiction where people wouldn't, Star Trek's, as an example, Star Trek kind of brought up certain conflicts between planetary races as a how do you say, not an analogy, but kind of reflecting what's been happening in real life. And in her mind, she wanted them to go full on with the actual event slash apartheid. And that's where I kind of came up with the term, not cultural appropriation. I'm doing a spin on that, where it's content appropriation. Because the way she phrased it, to me, it seems like she wanted them to do something else that is not their idea, thus appropriating their content. And that's been a big issue I've had with Radical SJWs. And I'm kind of glad that when it came to that podcast, they all came to a middle term of, okay, well, let's just wait until the game comes out because you're already criticizing something that's not even out yet. And then who knows? But of course, anyone with creative thinking would just say it's not going to happen. It's a mechanical apartheid. It's their story. It's something that's happening in a faraway future that we never had. So why would there be an African apartheid in the fucking game? And I'm sorry if I'm getting angry. I'm not really angry at you, Laura. I'm just angry at this recent wave of content appropriation type of thing where I'm gonna bitch at a certain product because they're not diverse the way I want it to be. Um, Hell, I went with that when it came to the whole Spider-Man thing, or I touched upon it when it came to the white Spider-Man controversy, and I really do think that content appropriation, or well, yeah, content appropriation is the term I can kind of give this kind of phenomenon, this kind of way of thinking, where I want them to add this kind of race. I want them to add this kind of amount of sex character. How do I say? I want this representation in this content. And if this content doesn't have it, then I shall shame this content for not having it. That I do feel it's becoming more and more of a toxic issue when creators don't get to write what they want to, and people are just going to shame them for it, for writing what they want. Or, how do I say that? Creators aren't allowed to write what they want, yet they'll get shamed because they're not writing what the other side wants, in a sense, or what this angry mass wants. This angry mass of people who generally are not too creative. Generally. Alright? I'm not going to say all of them, because some of them do just get off that bandwagon and do their own things and further on. Yet, again, this general mass of people, and just to, I don't know, just throw the ball back at Laura Kay, I just want to say, in general, sci-fi, novels, movies, books, yada yada yada. Sci-fi uses this kind of analogy because, let's say, doing a movie specifically on that or a game specifically on that would be boring. Um, no joke. To a certain degree, even I got bored of those. I don't even know how to name it, but movies like The Color Purple, movies like Black Diamond, I kind of got bored of these. There was a phase where I was really interested in these, yet I personally got bored because I don't find real life interesting. Uh, I like the X-Men because they are making a good, let's say, representation of, okay, well, mutants could be considered homosexuals or any other type of person, society that's persecuted by the big mass, you know? And hell, it's got some good stories about it. But you know what? I have a much easier time, or a lot of people have a much easier time clinging on to those stories because they don't hammer those points at you in a real life setting. You know, it's the hammering that gets really tiresome when it comes to writing and fiction, and that's why you don't see a lot of people going that route. You don't see a lot of people just going and doing apartheid movies because real life is kind of boring in that sense. And a good way, which has been seen in fiction works, is, well, in narrative work, is to do it via fiction, where people will not directly relate to, let's say, the alien or the spaceships and all that. Like, they won't relate to those fictional aspects, yet it'll ease in the situation or the connotation that you're trying to have, which is really cool. So that's why this whole cultural appropriation thing, that's why I kind of found it ridiculous when it comes to that topic. And I kind of find that this content appropriation type of mentality is, they don't, a lot of people going with that don't understand how creative and narrative works are built. It seems like it seems like it's just, all right, it poops out of nowhere and I can do it in the morning. But I swear to you, fucking get your pencil down and try to do a fictional work of your own, and you'll see it's difficult. You know, it's not. It comes out of you. It comes out of your experience, your inspiration, and all that. So when it comes to the whole Deus Ex for people shaming it for this, the mechanical apartheid, I just go, okay, it's a situation in the fictional future. It may have connotation to what happened in Africa, but if you're really interested, then look it up. But you don't have the right to shame them and yell at them for doing a work of fiction that never really happened in this world. And just seeing this whole thing about, well, maybe they should have done it on only on the African apartheid, then that's selfish. That's not how fiction works. That's not how creativity works, you know? Some people just don't want to deal with it. And that's their choice. That's their writing. That's their own content. So I find that to be a growing pain nowadays. Man, I can't even put my shoulder here, my keyboard. Um, I find this to be a growing pain, and today's, let's say, social networking, yeah, social hangout sites, or in these little social network sites, that's a large growing pain. It, I don't want people to think like that. Like, come on. I don't know. It kind of irks me. I got nothing against Laura. I just find that discussion to be a bit interesting in that sense. And just the mention of this was eye opening to this mentality. It was quite eye opening to seeing this way of thinking. Um, I still find that it doesn't make sense, okay? Because it's like saying, like I keep repeating, and I know I keep repeating it, it's mostly because I'm trying to make sense of it, but it's nonsensical. How do you want, it's like we can't use words anymore. If I'm going to have an apartheid in my comic, then I have to make it about the African apartheid? What is that? Or don't use the word? No. What is this? No. I don't know. Still trying to wrap my brain around it. Laura K, if you want to answer that, go for it. I'd be down to talking on Skype or something. But I don't get this kind of mentality. I don't get this kind of content appropriation of you shaming a studio because of what they're doing and all that. And maybe that's not your intention. Maybe that was a spur of the moment feeling that you had while watching that trailer. Yet I can't say the same for the angry mob that was, all the way far back that you may not have seen, of people getting offended at this whole mechanical apartheid thing. So, anyway, you can always come back to me, and I just don't see it. Anyway, I'm out. Later, people. It's fucking fiction. It's in the future. Hasn't happened yet. All right? Chill out. Or write your own thing. I know you're a writer, so do it. Later, guys.